It's the end of the year, so Game of the Year time. At ABC Gamer, we believe that Game of the Year is a rung rather than a single title, so we're going to be counting down our top 5 Games of the Year. I'm Jem, and my 2023 Game of the Year is Baldur's Gate 3. I feel like those 3 words right now can spark a forest fire of conversation. Or elicit the biggest groan in the history of groans because you've either been forced to listen to it before, or you just haven't embraced the joy, the wonder, the glory of Larian's dating sim disguised as an action RPG. Well, darlings, I'm here to start another forest fire, because Baldur's Gate 3 is my game of the year. Why? Because it made me a better person. Let's set the scene. Yeah, these things never start calmly, do they? You have been kidnapped by a race called Mind Flayers, who are intent on turning everyone they can get their tentacles on into obedient servants. Unluckily for you, you're well on your way to becoming one, having been infected with this freaky-looking leech thing called a tadpole. With the clock running out to stop an all-out invasion, your only hope is to travel to Baldur's Gate. On the way, you assemble a collection of fellow tadpole holders, hone your skills, get into a few squabbles, and hey, maybe kill a god or two. Who's to say?
Oh dear.
It's full-on Dungeons & Dragons fantasy shenanigans without the need for dragging your 20-kilo bag of shiny math rocks around. Never played D&D? Doesn't matter. You don't need to have an in-depth background with it to enjoy Baldur's Gate 3. I certainly didn't when I first started. My first character was a tiefling warlock, and while I only really skimmed the character details and starting spells, I did spend over an hour building a backstory for every scar, nick, and crease, because I am in fact that player. I figured I'd learn the rest as I went. And oh boy, oh dear, oh my, did I. If you spoke to the version of me that had just started BG3 oh so many moons ago, she'd probably tell you she was halfway up Struggle Street without a map. The combat was something I wasn't familiar with. As much a luck-based system as it was a numbers game, make that make sense. Enemies would be throwing out attacks left and right. I'd pray that by some miracle this would be the time my character would discover they could dodge. Hits I thought would be guaranteed didn't land. And I was struggling to work out how all these spells and abilities my party had to offer were actually supposed to work together. The way I'd heard other people talk, there were all these clever and crafty ways you could manipulate the environment, setting up perfect 1-2 punch combos of spells that would just devastate enemies. And here I was, taking 3 hours to fight one stupid hobgoblin with anger issues. Despite having played D&D, I couldn't figure out those same mechanics in this format. I couldn't fit them into the catalogue of RPG formulas I'd built up in my head. Turn-based? Well, okay, I have Fire Emblem. Action? Mass Effect. Relationship building? Dragon Age. But none of those really fit what I was being served in Baldur's Gate 3. They'd all given me pretty straightforward, solid, you do this and this happens information that I'd fall back on when I hit a snag. Oh, and therein lies the problem. I was expecting to be told what to do, not taught what to do. And what I was being taught through these brutal beatings was to make use of everything I had at my disposal. With this revelation out of the way, what was the first thing I did with my newfound perspective? I found void bombs, a beautiful matrimony between myself and a ball of destruction. Then it was fire potions, then the shove button, and before I knew it, I was concocting full schemes to lead enemies into my diabolical traps that usually involve fire. Let's not look too deeply into that. The point is, I felt like I'd cracked a secret language and this whole world of possibilities opened up to me. And I got to experience that multiple times as I came to better understand each supporting character's class and what dynamics work best between them. I could have settled on just using the characters I'd grown accustomed to, Astarion, Karlach, and Lae'zel, but where was the fun in that? Each character has so much combat potential that once I started experimenting, I couldn't stop. There are also so many wonderful interactions on the long road to Baldur's Gate that have nothing to do with your character. It's just the other folks in your party getting to know each other, fleshing out those bonds that don't revolve around their mighty leader and their inability to, well, I don't know, stop stepping on traps. Something that's always bugged me in choice and consequence-based games is a lack of nuance, of variety, of depth. Some obviously do it better than others. Mass Effect 1, for example, will forever scar me for making me kill my beloved Rex on my very first run. But I'm not expecting every game to put me through the emotional ringer every time I so much as bump into somebody on the street. Baldur's Gate 3, though, is the first RPG I've played in years that I truly feel I can be anyone in. I can be the lovable rogue, the brooding wizard, the naive warlock. These are all campaigns I have running right now, by the way. They can be characters with true depth, making mistakes, doing bad things, learning from them, growing from them. True roleplay. BG3 allowed me the space to make choices, knowing no matter what I did, I had something waiting for me. Shades of grey don't exist in a binary good versus evil approach to morality, and BG3 understands that. Good and bad are a bit more abstract. Sure, there are big choices that can firmly put you in the not to be trusted with sharp objects camp, but you're never boxed into that role. Nor are you forever bound to be the goodiest of goody two-shoes. Some people need a reality check from the blunt end of a weapon, and that's okay. And it's okay for other characters to not love you for those choices, which, frankly, as a chronic people pleaser, well, it's a lesson in self-control to not close the game at even the slightest hint of disapproval. I have such a massive appreciation for the way these characters responded to my decisions and influence. You can't coast off their approval. The choices you make for them, or allow them to make for themselves, aren't always so obviously right or wrong, which again was a bit of a shock for me. And this wasn't even as I was getting familiar with the game. This was right up till the final act of my first playthrough. I was convinced that if I gave them everything they wanted, I did all the right things, said all the right words, my companions would love me and I'd be getting the ultimate versions of events playing out in my favour. Spoiler alert, that's not what happened. Things were fine, sure, but I had this odd mismatch where my interactions weren't matching my actions. Characters were being led down paths I really didn't want them to go down. And from chatting with friends, I realised I was missing out on all these really interesting conversations because I wasn't actually playing the game the way it was supposed to be played. I wasn't role-playing. I was trying to metagame my way into a good outcome by using what I'd learnt in other RPGs to cheat the system. But BG3 was in fact smarter than that and thoroughly called me out for it, primarily through the character of Astarion. I won't get into the nitty-gritty of his story because I refuse to spoil it. It is genuinely some of the most heartbreaking writing I've had the pleasure of watching play out. But Astarion was the character I wanted to be closer to romance, to keep happy, to keep safe. Doing what I thought he wanted, saying the things I thought were what he wanted to hear, it led down a path I really didn't like.
I'll take his place before his blood can hit the floor.
And the more I got to know him through my other playthroughs, the more I realised how badly I'd messed it up by not being brave enough as a player to have those difficult conversations where you do call them out, you disagree, you let them be mad at you. Astarion isn't the only standout though. I adore all of these characters. Lae'zel scared the hell out of me for a while, but I came to love her for her rough edges as well as her softness, even if she did threaten to kill me more than once. Shadowheart was the closest thing I had to an enemy for a while, but she soon became one of my character's best friends. Karlach had my heart from day one, and that hasn't changed. Will was the big brother I never had and aspired to be like, even in my more antagonistic campaigns. Gale, though probably still mourning a relationship we never had, provided a sense of comfort even when things hit the fan, as they were so prone to do. Halsin surprised me in more ways than one, wink wink, but actually turned out to be something of a mentor to my short-lived druid character. It probably sounds silly, but I do really think Baldur's Gate 3 taught me how to be a better friend, to be more assertive, to listen better, to listen to my gut and trust my own insight. I know, I can practically feel the eye rolls. It's just a game, it's not that deep, and yeah, alright, maybe it's not to you, and that's okay, but it is to me. I think above all, the thing I've enjoyed the most about Baldur's Gate 3 is talking about Baldur's Gate 3 with my friends. Comparing notes, seeing what choices we made, judging each other for those choices, and then going back to see what we could do differently with this new information. I love this game. The fact this one thing can facilitate so many different stories, different interpretations, different paths is truly astounding and a testament to just how much time, effort, care, and passion the team at Larian put into Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 has taught me how to be a better player, and beyond that, how to embrace change, how to experiment, to make mistakes, to learn from them, have those difficult conversations, take in the beautiful moments, but also live in the now. What a wonderful thing for a game to be able to do. How special is that? To be left feeling so much that a game can do that to me, I think is just so awesome. But look, I'm far from the end of my time with Baldur's Gate 3, and I truly mourn for the person I'm gonna be when I am. But for now, I'm having the most amazing time learning more about this chaotic, cruel, wonderful, beautiful world and the people that fill it. And that is why Baldur's Gate 3 is my game of the year.